Downloading software. All right, I'll just get started. This is an introductory talk to Apache Cordova, writing hybrid mobile applications using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and Apache Cordova. Just to let you know who I am, my name is Lisa DeLuca. I am an IBMer. I work for our software group, Open Technologies team, and I'm also a committer on Apache Cordova. So during my day job, I get to help out with open source and contribute back to Apache Cordova. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. There's my Twitter handle, so everyone follow me so I can double my followers, and check out my website. So just a show of hands, how many people know what HTML is? Everyone? All right. What about, how many of you guys are pure native developers? No? Nobody? Okay, a couple. Good. So you're all here to learn how to take those skills that you have, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and make a mobile application, right? How many people have ever used Apache Cordova before? What are you doing here? Just kidding. Maybe you'll learn a couple of things. But basically the problem that Apache Cordova solves is there's a lot of mobile operating systems out there. There's Android and iOS and Windows Phone 7 and 8 and who knows, a million other types of operating systems. And as a developer, what does that mean? It's, as you can see from this graph, this is a recent stat from Nielsen.com that talks about the US and what the breakdown is of smartphone operating systems. And 52% of us use Android. Android users? Yeah? iOS? One of the other ones? Couple? All right. So, as a developer, I heard from a bunch of IBM executives recently that developers are lazy. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to do it one time. We don't want to sit and learn a bunch of native coding languages and write in all these different native platforms. So if you want to write native applications, you have to learn all these other languages. And if you're writing for iOS, you have to have a Mac. Unfortunately, as you can see, IBM does not provide Macs, so I'm on a Windows-based machine. Yeah, another problem is you have to maintain separate code bases. So if you're writing a native, you have to have your Mac, and if you have a new feature that comes up that you have to integrate, you have to have it integrated in a bunch of different code streams. Whereas with Apache Cordova, you could have one code stream. So it's a huge amount of investment to target multiple platforms. What's the solution? Apache Cordova, yay! Does everyone know what Apache Cordova is? Yeah, all right. So I'll just give you some of the basics here. It's basically allows developers to write cross-platform mobile applications using those web standards that we all love, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. A little bit of history of Cordova. It's still pretty much a baby, in my opinion. It was started in 2008. PhoneGap was created. It was part of some sort of hackathon that was out there. They were trying to solve this problem of why did developers have to learn all these different languages? Why can't we develop one time and deploy it to multiple platforms? So when it first started, it supported iPhone SDK, BlackBerry 4.2, and Android 1.0. 2009 was the year of accept and reject, is what we like to call it in Cordova. So developers started to really like it. It was super easy to get started and start using, but Apple did not. So a lot of the applications that were submitted to the App Store were rejected. And this kind of set the developers back, like, why should I write an app if it's just going to be rejected? But it started maturing in 2010. That's when outside contributors started happening. So IBM joined in. A lot of other big companies started backing this project, and Apple stopped rejecting the app submitted. 2011 is the year of the growing pains. So in 2011, Adobe purchased what the company was called Natobi. So Adobe purchased it and decided to contribute it back to open source. So it was contributed to Apache Cordova in 2011. So 2012, we submitted version 2.0 and had over 1 million downloads. So it became really popular. More people started to know what it was. A lot of people started calling it PhoneGap. That's probably what half of you know it as. And that's just because of all of the people at Adobe that were promoting it. And does anyone know the difference between PhoneGap and Cordova? No? No? All right, well, the difference is, PhoneGap is the trademarked name from Adobe, and they have this build process on top of Cordova. So if you wanted to not need to have a Mac to write your development and to produce the output files, you could use this PhoneGap build system. But Apache Cordova is the main code, and that's what developers should refer to it as. So 2013, a lot happened with Cordova. This is a cool graph showing how it changed. But before, in the 2.x releases of Cordova, it was all packaged in one big bundle. So as a developer, you'd go to the Cordova website or PhoneGap website, and you would download a zip file. And then you would have access to all of the core APIs from that zip file. In 2013, we decided to break it out into plugins. So as you can see, there's the core Cordova stuff that's still downloaded by the developers, but even the core pieces of Cordova are now packaged as these plugins. So you can come in and pick and choose what you want. So you don't have to have a heavy application. Instead, you can say, all right, I'm going to do something with camera, so I'm going to download just the camera plugin, as opposed to having to have all the other features as well. Another cool thing that we added was the CLI. I'll show you it here in a bit, but you can download and distribute. Cordova is distributed as a Node package manage module, so you can install it from a command line and use that command line to do, adding platforms and creating projects. And there's over 2 million downloads. So how does Cordova work? As a developer, as I mentioned, you only have to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but what does that mean to you? Like, how is it working behind the scenes, talking to the native APIs? Your mobile phones have this thing called a web view, and it's basically like a browser, and it opens up and displays stuff. And so basically, Cordova is a bridge, so developers write the code that they'd write using JavaScript, and then behind the scenes it's talking to some native calls. So the plugins that are part of Cordova is what is calling the native SDKs behind the scenes. So lots of platforms are supported. iOS and Android seem to be the most popular, but all of the core plugins that are available in all of these different platforms. One thing I think is pretty cool about Cordova is the goal is to implement web standards. When it was first created, it mirrored a lot of the W3C specs. In fact, a lot of people say the goal of Cordova is to eventually go away. So as these W3C specs catch up and the browsers can support all of these features, Cordova won't be as relevant or needed. Who contributes to Apache Cordova? You could probably guess from the last slide where I showed what platforms are supported, who contributes to Cordova. But there's a lot of companies that aren't browser or platform companies like IBM that'll have like a IDE, like IBM Worklight and others. So developing with Cordova. It's pretty easy, like I said, Node package module to install. Just do npm install-g for global Cordova. And then there's a few other platform-specific setups, so you're not done at that point. If you want to do Android, you have to also install the Android SDK. If you're doing iOS, you need to have Xcode, Windows, Visual Studio, and so on to meet whatever the platform needs are. So to create a Cordova app, go to the command line. You just type Cordova create and the name of your new project. The other parameters are optional. You can give it a package. That's the com.example.hello, and then the name of your main file if you want. And the -d file, you can put it on any of the Cordova command line interfaces, just a debug flag. All right, and to add a platform, also really easy from the command line, Cordova platform add, and the name of the platform. And if at any time you want to check to see what platforms are already installed as part of your project, you just do Cordova platform ls. Cordova plugins. So I already mentioned that the core pieces of Cordova themselves are plugins. There are 19 total. Here's a list of a few of them. I'm sure they're familiar to you. Camera, GPS, geolocation. But you can look at the whole list at cordova.io. But what's really cool about Cordova, and one of my favorite parts about it, is this plugins registry that we have now. So plugins.cordova.io, you want to memorize that one. But you go to that URL and you can see a list of all of the plugins that are available to you as a developer. And you can also see their popularity. I think the most popular one right now is device, like if you want to have access to some of the device information, like whether or not it's iOS or Android. But yeah, the documentation isn't the best right now, but there's information on how to create a plugin. So if your company has an Android or iOS SDK, you could turn around and create a Cordova plugin to make it easier for developers to consume whatever your SDKs are. Installing a plugin, also pretty easy. Cordova plugin add, and then the package name of the plugin. And this is to install a plugin that's available from the plugins repository. You could also, for debug purposes, point to a local plugin that you might have. And building and running, also straightforward, Cordova run or Cordova emulate. If you only have one platform installed, then you don't have to specify what the platform is. But if you have multiple, then you would write like Cordova run Android. Okay, let's do a demo. I'm going to show you how easy this is.
On the command for the plugin, does it do it at the installation level or is it happening at the app level?
App level. So, does anyone know how to make a Windows command thing bigger? No? Zoom in. Do what? Oh, no, I meant like the font. Which one? There's no size one.
There you go.
That's what we were at.
If you had it, you'd go to see the console, and then you had that font size.
Okay, I'll just talk through. So we're on a command line, and I'm going to type in Cordova create demo. Live demo. All right, created. So now I'll move into that directory, and I will add Android because I have Android installed. So we say Cordova platform add Android. It's usually faster than this, I swear. Yeah. And it's a demo.
Maybe console is I think I saw this time. You choose console is up top.
Consola. Yeah. And now pick a bigger one. Oh, yeah. Really big.
Nice. Yay.
Check the load on the system.
I know.
How many CPUs you got?
It must be this screen recording mode here. That's what I blame.
Could be a CPU.
Yeah. Yay, it's created. Okay, so now I'm going to do a demo on the camera. So we want to install the plugin for camera. So we'll do Cordova, plugin, add, and what's the name of it? We don't know. So you can go to the documentation. Let's see if the website's working here. So we go to plugins.cordova.io, and you can search for camera, and this pulled up camera, and it also includes the documentation and how to install. So we say Cordova plugin add, and here's the path for camera. So we'll go back here and say org.apache.cordova.camera. So this will do all of the configuration for a developer, so it'll put in the right spot for iOS and Android all of the features that are required to use the camera.
What happens if there's a platform the plugin doesn't support?
You know, I never tried a platform the plugin didn't support. Yeah, because a lot of the third-party ones don't support all platforms. So if you were to do it, hopefully the plugin developer wrote some code to catch those situations. Okay, it's installed. So let's go. I'll use brackets because I'm an IBMer. And refresh this.
What is that out there?
Brackets.
Which is a text editor?
Yeah. I think it's open source.
Yes.
Okay. All right. There we go. Here's my new one, demo. So Cordova projects have this structure. Hooks and merges I haven't really used, so I'm not going to talk to them. Platforms, you can expand and see all the platforms that are included for your project. Plugins, same thing. You'll get a directory for whatever plugins that you have installed, and this JSON file is more set up. So as a developer, you don't have to worry about anything until the www directory, and that's where you're going to have your CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. So we have the camera stuff associated with our project, but we need to use it. So we'll have to edit the HTML and the JavaScript. Can you guys see this okay? Better? All right, so how do we use camera? Let's go back to the documentation. All of the documentation has really good examples on how to start using any of the plugins. If you scroll down to the bottom of the documentation, it'll show you code samples that you can copy and paste. So, okay, so we'll do this one. We'll take a picture. So this is the JavaScript side of things, so I'll paste it over in my JavaScript here. So this index.js file is automatically created with your new project, and that's just basically setting up the application when device is ready. So this app.received-event method is called. Basically, you can have it do whatever you want once Cordova is ready to play with. So I'm going to paste my JavaScript here. Add a new method. And then we'll add a button on our main page here to call our JavaScript.
Does this editor do lookup on keyword?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Like type ahead stuff? Okay, and as you could see from the example, on success, we're going to take the value of whatever element is at this my image ID, and we're going to put in the source for the picture that we take. So I need to have that image somewhere, so we'll add an image tag. ID. Good to go. Okay, I think I got everything, so we can go back to our command line here, and we say Cordova run Android. So as part of the run command, it also is doing a build. So you don't have to do that separately. If anyone uses Genymotion for any of their emulation, you can also do that with Cordova. If you want to use an emulator, you'd run the Cordova emulate command. But if you're using a Genymotion emulator, then you can just say Cordova run.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
while it's going on?
of course.
It's my experience that what you're doing, the image URI is going to end up in a temp folder. How is it persistent? Will it stay there, or will it disappear at some point?
The picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll stay.
It'll stay?
Yep, depending on which method you're using, there's a couple options that you can use
Well,
for.
you did it just like you did it. Will it stay?
I don't know. I haven't tried it. Let me
'Cause
see.
I've been reading it. It will disappear. And
Uh-huh.
I'm,
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
Are you going to use the file
Mm-hmm.
to save it someplace in the file system?
I'm putting it on the app itself, so you can see the picture after I
You'll
take
save
it.
on tel?
Uh-huh.
Good, that'd be great.
It usually is only a couple seconds, so it's definitely something wrong with my machine here.
It's building 89 modules.
Yeah. One minute and 53 seconds.
Is that app, or is that Android device just hooked up to the computer?
Yep.
USB?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm using Droid at screen to show you the screen. So that's why it's seeing. Okay, so we can click take picture. We can take a picture of all you beautiful people. So yeah, looks good. And then probably should have changed my thing to not be so big, but you can see the picture right there on the app. Pretty easy. So that was my quick demo showing off camera. So as you can imagine, Cordova doesn't handle the user experience. So that's up to the user, and you can use whatever framework you want. If you want to, use jQuery mobile or whatever to make it look and feel like the native devices more. But again, that's up to the developer. Cordova does not handle any of that. If any of you guys want to help out with Cordova, we're always looking for more contributors. There's currently 50 Git repositories that are part of the Apache Software Foundation Cordova projects. So there's a lot of them. And our wiki has a lot of good information on how to get started, how to start contributing. You don't have to be part of a larger company. We have a lot of individual contributors that just want to help out and better understand how Cordova works. So what's next for Cordova? Right now, with Android especially, when you use the Cordova feature, you're using the web view that comes standard with Android, and there's a lot of, I don't know, it's not quite up to par. So what we're working on now is trying to make it so you can swap the web views, so you can have more than just the default web views available. It's almost like embedding a browser as possible plugins to make it faster to interact with Cordova. That's one big thing we're working on. I mentioned that we align with the W3C specs. There's a lot of misalignment since Cordova has changed so much since it initially came out in 2008. So we're doing a lot of work to align the existing specs to Cordova. We're now doing independent platform releases, so the versioning for Cordova doesn't really matter anymore. I mentioned we were on 3.x. Because the platforms are now released on their own, that versioning won't really matter as much. You can't really talk about it as versions. So when there's a bunch of new features for Android, for example, we'll vote as a community and we'll release that separately instead of making everybody release at the same time. We're also doing improved documentation and translations. I think it's kind of hard for developers to get up and running, to get started with Cordova. It's easy to use, but there isn't a lot of good getting started type of material out there. That's one part of Cordova that I help out on. I'm actually the lead for translations. So we have it available in 10 different languages. We use this tool called Crowdin that helps translate the project for us. So if anyone knows another language besides English and wants to help out, go to this URL. Oh yeah, I wanted to show off my cool tool here. So I went to ApacheCon in April, and it was just a bunch of Apache projects, and there were these other people talking about Bluetooth. And one guy from Cordova wrote a Bluetooth plugin that's available on the plugin site, so you can connect any device to over Bluetooth. But what I have here is my Arduino that has a Bluetooth Classic connector on it, and it's going to control this Neo matrix. So each of the lights on the Neo matrix are individually addressable. So I wrote this Cordova app that talks, it basically sends a string over Bluetooth to the Arduino that parses it and changes the color and information on there. So let me get it up and running. Is it working? Okay. So the Droid@ screen's a little bit behind, but you can click a color and then you can drag your finger, and this is all written in HTML. This is actually Canvas that I used. And you can draw, and then it lights up on the Arduino. It's always neat to see like hardware and controlling it. Anyway, so I'll pass this along if you guys want to play while I finish talking. Yeah. So the Arduino itself has an IDE and programming, and it's really well documented how to make the Arduino do things. So I just did a Google search for the Neo matrix, and I found some code on how to access each of the individual pins. So this is the code that is running on the Arduino itself. So you just connect the Arduino over USB to your computer, and you can throw it code and tell it what to do. So just to run through this pretty quickly, this is saying that the NeoPixel is attached to the 5th pin. I'm not a hardware person, so don't ask me any hardware questions. But it's connected on the 5th little connector thing. And basically what it's doing here is it's setting up the Bluetooth for Arduino. And this is all documented really well on the Arduino stuff. And let's see. So it loops. So it has this listener that loops in to see for this string. And I pass in a string that starts with an L. And it listens for those L strings. And once it sees it, then it's going to parse the string and get the red, green, and blue values. So that's how I structure my string. And then like if blue is greater than 255, that's my indicator to turn it off. And then all it does is set the pixel color of the light. So the light number I send in as part of the string, and then the red, green, and blue values. Pretty simple. And if you want to know more about like the Bluetooth plugin in general, or playing with hardware and Arduinos and stuff, Don Coleman is the guy that told me about it, and he wrote the Bluetooth serial plugin for Cordova. He does a lot of stuff with them, and he's awesome. He's really easy to get in touch with and talk to. So just like the other plugins that I mentioned, you can install from the command line. Cordova plugin install, and you can see that he has his own little handle here for all of his plugins. It's Megster. And then, as I mentioned, I send a string that starts with an L, and it has the red, green, blue colors, and you can send anything. So I could write a string if I wanted to, something like this. So hello, Arduino. This NeoPixel has some cool software where you could send text and have it scroll across the screen. So you could imagine doing really cool things with that. But that's really it. That's all I had. This is the sites to remember. Cordova.io is the link to Apache Cordova. Plugins.cordova.io is all the plugins. There's over 220 plugins that are available now, so the community is really growing. There's a lot of support, a lot of cool things that people are doing like this. Documentation, Jira Issues is our bug tracking system. So if you ever run into problems with Cordova, anyone can come in and open a Jira issue against it. We have our wiki site, plugin development. So if you, like I mentioned, had some SDKs that your company was working on and wanted to create a Cordova plugin, follow this link on how to do it and promote it, and developers can come in and use your stuff. Here's one Cordova tutorial. I couldn't find a good one. Like I said, I think that's one part the community is going to have to do a better job of, is developing the resources for developers. But if you do have a question, Stack Overflow is really good. There's a tag for Cordova, and the committers on the project are constantly going in and checking and making changes there. So that's all I had. Did anyone have any questions?
Can you talk to us about how you connected your device when you ran the Cordova run command? How did you find the device?
You mean how you saw it on the screen?
No, not the screen. When you ran the command,
Uh-huh.
how did you find the device?
Oh, I've just used the regular Android installation. You have to install the Android SDK, so it's just using what's built in with Android. There's nothing fancy that Cordova is doing there. It just checks to see what devices are connected and if there's any emulators.
Wondering if you could address best practices for setting up builds that target both a Cordova environment and a regular web or web app environment. It's kind of different. I understand there's many ways you can approach that, but are there recommended best practices other than just using a grunt build, write your own thing? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I would suggest IBM Worklight. No, seriously, there's a bunch of IDEs that are out there that allow you to add new platforms, and you can see the code is separated very nicely for each of the platforms that are available. And Worklight has the web-based version right next to it. So if you want to reuse a lot of the same assets, you can do that within Worklight. I mean, if you just want to do command line stuff and have a quick IDE, I don't know of a good way to do that. I haven't played around much with the grunt stuff, but you could probably do that too.
Kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
First, what kind of persistence / database like plugins are out there, and what are the most common ones? And then, is there any way to synchronize the second part? Is there any way or easy plugin that helps you synchronize the client-side stuff with something maybe on the service?
Sure. So there is a lot of plugins for local storage. So you use regular, standards-based local storage type of techniques. And then there's a lot of cloud-based plugins. So I'm an IBMer, and I just did some stuff with Bluemix. So we have Cloud Foundry that has a backend that has NoSQL databases. And we're about to push actually a Cordova plugins to the plugin store that you can use this Bluemix service. And I believe it's free right now. So wait a couple weeks and it'll be available. But
The trouble with using local storage is that images are not strings. Do you have time to use the file plugin and save that image that you created in your example to the file system?
yeah, come talk to me after and we'll play with it, because I haven't done it yet, so I don't want to waste everyone else's time. But
Yeah, because it's a difficult problem that you can only, local storage only handles strings.
Yep. Sure.
So how do you find the performance bottleneck in this Cordova app? And what's your best practice to,
Sure. Yeah, so he asked about performance, and that is kind of the biggest concern that you hear when people talk about whether or not to go hybrid or native development. And there's whole talks where people talk about performance. There's some really good ones out there, actually, but a lot of it is just performance common sense that you would do with HTML and JavaScript in general, you know, and a lot of it like specific to the frameworks that you're using. So if you're using jQuery, here's some techniques to make it run faster type of thing. And I know that there were some talks today about performance and showing how you can figure out what the performance is on your mobile device and your Cordova application. I haven't had to do that with my job, and I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but I know that there's a lot of good resources out there. Anyone else? Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
So for Android, support all the way back to
Yeah, so the question is like dropping support for older versions of platforms, is that right? Yeah, so as new releases of Cordova come out, we do stop supporting some older versions, and it's mostly we'll do a lot of research on what is the most popular platforms out there. And I think we right now support iOS 5, 6, and 7, and they're going to drop 5 in the next release type of thing. But all the code is on GitHub, so if you were to need, for whatever reason, some of the older support, you could go back and have access to that. All of the code is forever available.
I was at a presentation earlier today, and they were talking about how phone gathering and stuff really doesn't use or emulate the native looks of the various platforms. Is that something you guys are looking for?
No, we stay away from that. That's all the developer's decision to do whatever frameworks they want to use. There's a lot of good stuff. Like I know jQuery has a lot of CSS specific to iOS and Android, and you write once and it determines what device someone's on and does that for you. But Cordova itself doesn't handle the UI. It's up to the developer.
So the different plugin, does that have the version compatibility problems? For example, this plugin may just for the old version, not for the...
Yeah, I believe you can get information about what platforms they support, but I haven't had a lot of experience with that. Uh-huh.
Do you guys have a roadmap on your page for when you're going to have an improvement for
The guys that are responsible for it, there are a lot of guys from the Google team actually are really pushing for it. And every day I see an email from them saying, this tiny little piece isn't working quite good yet. So I think it's going to be any minute when the swappable web views would be available.
What's the pricing on Worklight?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not actually on the Worklight team. I work closely with some of those people, but yeah, I'm sure it's a lot. An arm and a leg. Yeah. Yeah, but there's a free developer. You can go and download the Developer Studio. Try it out. Yeah.
She seems very excited.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for 60 days.
Yeah. No, yeah. Uh-huh. I don't do any of that kind of stuff, so unfortunately I don't know the answer to it. All right, well, like I said, follow me on Twitter. I need some followers.